Pool party start today at 5, 6 o'clock. If you already got the address, pull up, man. You got the address, pull up. If you need the address, DM me right now. The pool party start at 5, 6.
I bet you all thought this was Foolio's final moment before his death. In a shocking turn of events, a nurse has revealed never-before-heard details about Foolio's disturbing final moments at the hospital. And trust me, what she said changes everything. I got all the details. Let's get into it. The shocking revelation: they left him bleeding out while laughing in the hallway. That's what a nurse at Tampa General allegedly whispered to her colleague after watching paramedics roll in a lifeless body around 5:42 a.m. That body was Foolio. Real name Charles Jones Jr., a rapper who, whether you knew him from his music or his enemies, died on his own birthday. He was only 26. The hospital staff, who weren't supposed to speak on what happened that night, are now breaking their silence. And what they're revealing paints a disturbing picture, not just of that tragic morning, but of how deep the hostility toward Foolio ran, even inside the walls of the very place meant to save lives. But before we break down the revelations, let's go back to the beginning. Foolio's final 24 hours. July 6, 2024. The day Foolio should have been celebrating his 26th birthday. Instead, he was being hunted. He started the day like many other rappers in Florida do, by going live on Instagram, smiling, promoting a pool party in Tampa, Florida, and sending his fans the address.
Pool party start today at 5, 6 o'clock. If you already got the address, pull up, man. You got the address, pull up. If you need the address, DM me right now. The pool party start at 5, 6 o'clock.
He would not be seen in public again after that pool party. Within 12 hours, there was gunfire in the Holiday Inn parking lot close to Busch Gardens. 4 people were shot, according to authorities, and 1 person died. Although the media reports only touched the surface, that person was Foolio. Gave the impression that it was simply another gunfire. But the people on the scene claimed that this was actually a well-planned ambush that was prepared with military-level accuracy and fed by months of observation. Police officers chuckled when they learned that Foolio had been killed, which is one of the most unsettling facts from the entire inquiry and has been verified in numerous interviews. His final public appearance would be at that pool party seemed to be alive. Within 12 hours, there was gunfire in the Holiday Inn parking lot close to Busch Gardens. 4 people were shot, according to authorities, and 1 person died. Although the media reports only touched the surface, that person was Foolio. They presented it as merely another gunfight. But in reality, those on the scene claimed that this was a well-planned ambush that was prepared with military-level accuracy and fed by months of observation. Police officers chuckled when they learned that Foolio had been killed, which is one of the most unsettling facts from the entire inquiry and has been verified in numerous interviews.
Oh, this guy, I'm surprised he didn't get killed earlier. You know, he's desecrating people's graves and talking about dead people and all that. You know, he got what he deserved.
This attitude wasn't unique. Boozy, who has personally encountered law enforcement, claims that many officers rejoice when rappers like Foolio are shot dead.
Like they be happy as I know one dude they walked straight on there like, finally got him. They finally got you.
Foolio didn't have to battle for his life when he was taken to Tampa General with 4 gunshot wounds, including 1 to the chest. There were people all around him who had no intention of saving him. No one in the emergency room had ever seen a patient arrive with that many gunshot wounds and still be conscious, according to a trauma nurse who begged to remain nameless out of concern for her employment. She claimed that Foolio mouthed something that sounded like, "Don't trust," but his voice was too weak to finish. He then flatlined. Less than 10 minutes later, he passed away. What is infuriating the hospital community, however, is the actions of the staff following his death. As stated by a male technician exclaimed out loud, "One less gang member to treat." in reference to the second nurse who indicated she was close to the break room when Foolio's death was verified. 2 other employees reportedly laughed at the remark. Let's just call it that. That is hardly a sign of incompetence. It's a culture of dehumanization, one in which the trauma of a young black man is turned into a joke. Foolio didn't even want to be in Tampa, which is perhaps the most tragic fact of all. Several people close to the rapper claim that he made the last-minute decision to move to Tampa to avoid drawing criticism from his Jacksonville rivals. His team thought that the distance and hotel security would make it more difficult for operations to follow him. They were mistaken. Ring cameras and Cash App receipts are said to have placed several suspects in the vicinity hours prior to the shooting. In addition to the fact that Foolio's location was shared on social media, as stated by DJ Academics,
Everyone's going to prison for like 20, 30 years, life. Someone may even get the death penalty.
was a surgical scheme to prevent GPS tracking. Phones were left at home and 2 different cars were used. Pieces of bullets from other killings matched. Cash App purchases that were subpoenaed demonstrate intent. Teslas parked in the lot provide 4K surveillance. What do you name this if it wasn't a hit? Foolio's ambush was not an isolated incident. It was the last part of a tale that had been coming apart for years. A tale full of surveillance, treachery, and retribution. And it gets clearer the more you examine it. It was a personal matter. Who killed Foolio is not the only question. How many people knew he was going to die before the shots even flew is the actual question. Additionally, that leads us to the girl who texted him to ask where he was. The one currently working with detectives while sitting in a chilly interrogation room. The one supposedly hoping for a deal while pregnant. She was at the hotel, as several sources have confirmed. The room contained her. Vlad TV claims that she is telling the truth. What does that signify? This implies that Foolio's adversaries were guided to him rather than simply discovering him. An 18-year-old suspect who had previously shot Foolio in the foot is said to have driven 3 hours to complete the hit. Several shootings, including one that occurred only weeks ago, are now connected to the same adolescent. Kids weren't playing. Gangster here. Loyalty and street violence were the foundations of this loop. Notoriety and surveillance technology. However, no one is discussing what transpired inside the hospital while everyone is analyzing the operations and the drive-by. According to a hospital porter we spoke with, who asked to remain anonymous, security had already retrieved CCTV footage from the ambulance bay within 30 minutes of Foolio's passing. Why? Because the Tampa Police Department demanded it rather than asking for it. He claims that when the officers showed up there, they were uptight and hostile and made jokes about Foolio's music while standing over his body. I wonder whether he's still smoking on BB these days. That alludes to Foolio's notorious response. Song, When I See You, a remix of Fantasia's popular R&B ballad, in which he specifically names Jacksonville rivals who have passed away, such as BB Techie. The song became popular due to its eerie tune as well as the morbid boastfulness in its lyrics. Foolio wasn't creating beef to gain influence. Thus, the truth behind those words is even worse than the music. In a lengthy sit-down interview, he revealed to No Jumper that his songs were inspired by actual pain. When he got off a school bus at the age of 15, he was shot.
I got hit on my hip. It broke my hip. Hell yeah. I mean, that shit was just crazy how that shit happening, bro. Cause that whole day when I was in school, I got in an argument with a couple people, like a couple boys off in the fight and shit, hopped on their bus. I was just on some arrogant shit, bro. I wasn't really thinking, cause I'm 15 years.
Give it some thought. 15 years old, shot and in agony, crawling. He was also treated like trash by the neighbors. It wasn't merely provocation either, when he later rapped about the deceased. In a world that left him bleeding in front yards, it was a means of regaining control through music. But Foolio was not done suffering. When his younger brother was 15, the cops killed him. Even in his final interviews, Foolio talked about the dread of being tagged in a system where every police officer already had a target on his back. He talked about it a lot. That was his life. Being shot at, subjected to harassment, and banned by clubs and prohibited from entering places. He even went so far as to post a printed sign in his hometown of Jacksonville prohibiting his music from being played within the establishment. Not only was he blacklisted, but music by other people connected to him was as well. A few months before his passing, he posted evidence of that prohibition on Instagram. The context is thus missing when people claim that Fio encouraged the violence. The war he was fighting was not his own, and he never really escaped it in many respects. He was not given honor even in death, not by some of the people who vowed to keep him alive, and not by the media. Now that the suspects are facing life in jail, the question is, defenders didn't completely do that. Even if the hospital failed him, and the headlines omitted the facts. The controversy and tragedy. The probe, on the other hand, was unprecedented in the history of the streets. The investigation into Julio Foolio's murder wasn't just another victim of the ongoing street war in America. This case would demonstrate how the use of contemporary technology has fundamentally changed the way that police investigate homicides. Although the same technology allows for new ways for shooters and their targets to coordinate. Hours after the shooting, Tampa police investigators were looking over a digital goldmine of evidence that would have been straight science fiction just a decade ago. The investigators used phone logs, license plate readers, and security footage to piece together not only what happened that night, but also who was behind it and how precisely this hit was organized. It was completely insane. How much surveillance footage was available? In addition to the hotel cameras that captured the actual murder, police had access to video from many other sites that provided a comprehensive account of that fatal evening. The extensive video evidence covered locations, including the Holiday Inn Teasers Gentlemen's Club, Truth 18 nightclub, and even a Tesla's integrated security system. This allowed prosecutors to trace the timeline minute by minute we were viewing a film. Investigators were horrified by how well planned these shooters were after seeing this tape. It became clear from the surveillance footage that this was not an impromptu feud or an isolated violent incident. This well-coordinated execution was carried out at a military level. The video showed the operations tracking Fio's movements with the accuracy and patience of trained hitmen as they followed him from place to place all night. Investigators began examining the digital traces these murderers left behind, which led to a technological breakthrough. Readers for license plates had stopped the suspects' cars on their way from Jacksonville to Tampa. Several hours of travel demonstrated how well planned this murder was. The electronic trail left by these automated systems, which were dispersed across Florida's roadway system, was impossible to conceal or remove. However, the information provided by cell phone data regarding the amount of forethought that went into this murder. The gunman had been conducting a thorough surveillance operation, according to phone logs, including using cell phone data to trace Fio's location using GPS coordinates and social media monitoring. The same technological tools that Foolio employed to market his music and communicate with his fans had been manipulated by his antagonists. Deep into social media analysis, the digital investigation's expertise was evident. Anticipate Foolio's activities and organize their attack. Investigators found that the gunman had been keeping an eye on his Instagram posts all night long. When Foolio shared his whereabouts on the innocence, he had given his murderers up-to-date information on his precise location for his birthday party. The purpose behind this hit became abundantly evident as investigators examined the evidence further and discovered a network of links. The existing gang feud between Fio, representing 6 Block, and KTA was directly related to the shooting. Although the suspects were connected to a TK and 1,200 rival sets that had been engaged in years-long conflict. This wasn't just any street violence. It's part of a cycle of retaliation that had been intensifying for almost 10 years. It was a targeted execution. It was the fastest authorities had ever been able to identify the shooters in a case this complicated. Less than a month after the homicide, Lee Burkhall, the chief of police in Tampa, declared that 3 people were taken into custody. Alicia Latoya Andrews, age 21, Shaw Andre Gathright, age 18, and Isaiah Jermaine Chance, age 21. These suspects' quick identification and apprehension showed how effective contemporary investigative techniques may be when used appropriately by law enforcement. However, it was these arrest circumstances that would spark conversation on the streets and, ultimately, go viral on all social media sites. Coordinating with Tampa Police, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office had meticulously organized these arrests, just as the suspects had done when they planned their murder. On July 27th, early in the morning of 2024, during a torrential downpour, law enforcement pounced, with officers in full tactical gear rushing through Jacksonville's rain-soaked streets to nab the criminals. Body cam footage of these arrests would become viral on social media. Axon body timestamps on the video recorded every aspect of the procedure had captured the original crime in high definition, while tactical teams coordinated simultaneous raids at various sites. Viewers witnessed officers escorting the suspects in both indoor and outdoor environments. The arrest footage had everyone talking on social media because of the dramatic weather conditions, which gave it an almost cinematic feel. Rain seized their targets. Policemen in tactical gear moved with practiced efficiency as the flashing lights of police cars reflected off the wet streets. The dramatic appearance of the entire situation was instantly reflected in social media comments, as users expressed their reactions to the fact that the cops have you covered when they come for you in the rain. The proof that the number of suspects detained was incredibly thorough and overwhelming.
Since our last interview, Foolio has gotten killed, and 5 people were involved, 4 guys, 1 girl. The girl's pregnant currently,
No.
which makes it even crazier. One of the guys, when they were arresting him, I guess he had a gun to his head. Did you hear this whole story?
It appeared that one of the suspects had made the incredibly foolish choice to preserve mementos from the murder, resulting in tangible proof that connected him to the scene of the crime. The collaboration they got from one of crew members was possibly the most detrimental of all.
So she's already spoke to them and confirmed, oh yeah, we were here. Oh yeah, we were at the hotel when he got hit, but we didn't know what was happening. We were lost.
Investigators were able to learn insider details about the murders, planning, and execution, thanks to her statements. The study also showed how important social media was to the preparation and execution of this hit. The gunman had been keeping an eye on Fio's Instagram posts and using his own marketing efforts to undermine him. He was effectively giving people who wanted him dead information every time he shared his whereabouts or his plans. The lonely thing that equaled the operation's complexity was how careless they were thereafter. The proof that would convict them was produced by the same technology that allowed them to organize and coordinate the murder. As the inquiry went on, 2 more suspects were still at large. Davon Murphy, age 27, and Rashad Murphy, age 30, while Dave Murphy would go missing for months. Rashad Murphy would eventually give up following a confrontation. On July 30th, 2024, being apprehended in January 2025, new guidelines for conducting gang-related murder investigations were established by the volume and caliber of evidence gathered. In this case, prosecutors had data from license plates, cell phone records, and security footage, tangible evidence from suspects' residences, social network evidence, and cooperative witnesses. The type of thorough case that prosecutors hope for is one in which guilt can be shown beyond a reasonable doubt. Consequences, aftermath, and the future out on the streets. the ensuing court cases would turn out to be as dramatic as the actual arrests. All 5 suspects were apprehended by January 7, 2025, with Dave Murphy becoming the last fugitive to be apprehended following a 6 manhunt. In what had grown to be one of the most widely followed murder cases in recent hip-hop history, the arrest's completion represented a critical turning point. Prosecutors in Florida declared they would pursue the death penalty for Rashad Murphy, Sean Gathright, and Isaiah Chance. However, Alicia Andrews was conspicuously left off of the death penalty notice. According to this ruling, prosecutors believed that the suspects' degrees of involvement varied, with some being considered getaway drivers and others as the real shooters who actually fired the shots and carried out the grunt labor. The continuous drama was further heightened by the courtroom sessions themselves. During court, defense lawyers attempted to contest whether the CCTV footage could be used to identify suspects. Hearings, but it seemed impossible to overcome the overwhelming amount of evidence against them. Prosecutors had created what seemed to be a solid case using the CCTV footage, tangible evidence discovered in their cribs, and cell phone data that tracked their whereabouts. At the same time, the hip-hop scene was facing its own challenges about the violent culture that had caused this tragedy. Even those accustomed to hip-hop beef culture were taken aback by the rapidity with which diss recordings had been created following Foolio's passing. Just hours after the murder, Yungeen Ace's song "Do It" was released, sparking a heated discussion regarding the genre's ethics and the musician's accountability for the violence that music can encourage. The dispute became even more intense as other diss tracks began to appear. Game Over, which Yungeen Ace released in July 2024, added fuel to the fires of what many perceived to be a culture that was becoming more and more poisonous. Some people deemed these disclosures to be extremely offensive, while others defended them as a component of the street realism and competitive history of rap. But the events at Foolio's own burial may have best captured the complexities of the situation. His diss track was rapped by family members. "When I See You" during the funeral, showing how deeply even the most revered times of mourning and memory had been impacted by the culture of beef and vengeance. It served as a sobering reminder that the rappers weren't the only targets of the violence. It had used up the whole entire communities and families. Foolio was in the news even after he left because of some crazy things that happened in the aftermath. His Instagram account featured controversial pictures, one of which showed his face on the Undertaker's body with the caption, "I will always live. I am a demigod." Some followers began to wildly speculate about if he had staged his death as a result of these posts. Officials and relatives had verified his passing. His family or team probably oversaw the posts promote his posthumous music. Releases on September 23, 2024, Foolio's posthumous album, Demigod, was released, adding yet more dimension to his complex legacy. The 17-track album, which includes collaborations with Trey and other artists, Boy and Project Yungeen, served as a sobering reminder of what had been lost on the streets as much as a celebration of his skill. Reactions from fans were divided, with some applauding its content and others criticizing its promotion as not doing enough to commemorate his legacy. The has had a significant and varied influence on Jacksonville's drill rap scene. PD8, a music producer, called the violent trend in the industry idiotic and hoped that Foolio's passing would spur a move to more upbeat music that might improve the neighborhood. However, the situation on the ground remained worrying, since rival gang rivalry was already being held responsible for other acts of violence, such as the 2025 murder of a 7-year-old. Police authorities kept a close eye on the situation. The fundamental issues that had stoked years of violence generally remained the same. Despite Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters' emphasis that his police would not accept retaliatory attacks, some important participants had been removed from the board in Foolio's case due to the arrests. but the gang structures and cultural dynamics that had produced, they were still whole.
I want to applaud the investigators from Tampa PD and JSO for their committed collaborative work to bring violent criminals to justice. What I saw in this partnership evidenced the very best of information and resource pooling to ensure public safety.
Transparency and public access to police resources were also significant issues brought up by the body cam footage's viral nature. Although the tape shed light on the workings of law enforcement, it also blurred the boundaries between justice and spectacle by transforming a serious criminal investigation into viral entertainment. The technology that made it possible to conduct a comprehensive investigation into Foolio's murder also made his death and the capture of his murderers into social